What would you say if I told you that a woman saved the most important leader in Israel's history when she was just 7 years old, became one of only 3 leaders? God himself said he sent to deliver Israel, and then was struck with leprosy while her brother, who said the exact same words, walked away untouched. Sounds impossible, right? Unfair, unjust, incomprehensible. But it happened, and her name appears in Micah chapter 6 verse 4 alongside Moses and Aaron as one of 3 people God sent to lead his people out of Egypt. Her name was Miriam. Have you ever served faithfully for years only to watch your voice slowly fade? Have you ever had authority one season and then quietly lost it the next? Have you ever spoken up about something that felt wrong only to be punished while others who did the same thing faced nothing? Miriam lived all 3. She wasn't just Moses' sister. She was a prophetess, a worship leader, one of 3 leaders God himself named. But something shifted. Her influence started slipping, and when she finally said something about it, God struck her with leprosy. But here's what most people miss. Something happened during those 7 days. She stood outside the camp with rotting skin that will transform how you see your own seasons of being silenced. Something about 600,000 people that nobody talks about. Something that proves your correction isn't your ending. And there's a twist at the end of this story that will make you weep. A detail about what the entire nation did while Miriam stood outside the camp that reveals something profound about whose voices still matter to God even after he's corrected them. So stay with me, because the story of the woman who saved Moses, lost her voice, and discovered what God does with voices he's humbled begins now. To understand Miriam, we need to go back to Egypt, to the Nile River, to a morning that would define her entire life. Imagine the scene. The sun rising over the Nile River, golden light across water that had swallowed thousands of Hebrew baby boys, the smell of river reeds, the sound of Egyptian soldiers laughing as they patrolled, crocodiles gliding through the water, patient and hungry. And there, hidden in those reeds, sat a basket woven from papyrus and sealed with tar. Inside, a 3-month-old baby boy his mother could no longer hide. And watching from the shadows, a 7-year-old girl with her heart pounding so violently she could hear it in her ears, her hands trembling, her breath shallow and quick, knowing that if the soldiers found her baby brother, they would rip him from the basket and throw him to the crocodiles, knowing that everything depended on what happened in the next few minutes. That girl was Miriam. Exodus chapter 2 verses 5 through 6 records what happened next. Then Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe, and her attendants were walking along the riverbank. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her female slave to get it. She opened it and saw the baby. He was crying, and she felt sorry for him. The princess of Egypt, the daughter of the man who ordered every Hebrew boy drowned. She found the basket, she opened it, she saw the baby, and her heart softened. But here's what most people miss about this moment. This wasn't the miracle yet. This was just compassion. The miracle was what happened next. While the princess held this crying Hebrew baby, while her attendants whispered warnings about her father's decree, while the moment hung in the balance between life and death, a small voice spoke. Exodus chapter 2 verse 7. Then his sister asked Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you?" Miriam stepped out from the reeds, 7 years old, terrified, but speaking anyway. 5 words that changed everything. The princess agreed. Miriam ran, and she brought back the baby's own mother, who got paid by Pharaoh's household to raise her own son under royal protection. Miriam was 7 years old, and she saved Moses' life, not by accident, not by luck, by courage, by quick thinking. By speaking at exactly the right moment, with exactly the right words. Have you ever had a moment where your voice changed everything? Have you ever spoken up at exactly the right time and watched a miracle unfold? She saw the miracle first. She had a voice that mattered first. And one day, that voice would be silenced. But even more powerful than the silencing would be what happened after. Because God restored my voice isn't just Miriam's story. It's the story of everyone who's ever had their voice matter, then fade, then be restored by a God who never wastes a season of silence. But voices that matter in childhood don't always matter in adulthood. And Miriam was about to discover something painful about being the one who was there from the beginning. Fast forward 40 years. Miriam wasn't a little girl anymore. She was a woman with her own authority, her own calling, her own voice that moved thousands. Exodus chapter 15 verses 20 through 21 records her moment of leadership. Then Miriam the prophet, Aaron's sister, took a timbrel in her hand, and all the women followed her with timbrels and dancing. Miriam sang to them, "Sing to the Lord, for he is highly exalted." Read that again slowly. Miriam the prophet, not Miriam the sister, not Miriam the helper, Miriam the prophet. She led worship after the Red Sea crossing. She stood at the front, she sang, she prophesied, and all the women followed her, not some women, all the women. Can you picture that moment? Thousands of women dancing, tambourines ringing through the desert air, victory songs echoing off the rocks. And at the front, leading them all, Miriam. She had a voice, a powerful voice, a voice that mattered. But here's where her story takes a turn that will make your heart ache. Here's the verse that validates everything she was about to feel. Micah chapter 6 verse 4, God himself speaking. "I brought you up out of Egypt and redeemed you from the land of slavery. I sent Moses to lead you, also Aaron and Miriam." Stop. Read that again. "I sent Moses to lead you, also Aaron and Miriam." 3 names. Not Moses and his team. Not Moses and his helpers. 3 names. 3 people God said he sent. Moses, Aaron, Miriam. Equal authority, equal calling. God himself confirming it. So when Miriam started noticing her voice fading, when she started feeling pushed to the background, she wasn't imagining it. Have you ever felt that? Years of being at the front, and then almost imperceptibly you're moved to the back, not fired, not confronted, just less and less heard. Your opinions matter less, your presence noticed less, your voice carrying less weight. What would you do in that position? Would you stay silent and die inside bit by bit? Would you speak up and risk everything? Miriam spoke up. Numbers chapter 12 verse 1 records it. Miriam and Aaron began to talk against Moses because of his Cushite wife, for he had married a Cushite. But read the very next verse. Numbers chapter 12 verse 2. Has the Lord spoken only through Moses, they asked. Hasn't he also spoken through us? There it is, the real question. Doesn't God speak through us too? She wasn't denying Moses' leadership, she was defending her own existence. Was she wrong to speak up? Partially. Was she right to feel what she was feeling? Absolutely. She had legitimate hurt. She had valid questions. She had real authority that was genuinely fading. And she expressed it in the wrong way, at the wrong time, with the wrong tone. Can you imagine watching everything you built slowly becoming invisible? Can you imagine having authority that God himself confirmed and then watching it slip away? Miriam was about to learn something devastating about speaking from a wounded place. But God was watching, not to condemn, to correct. And what he was about to do would prove something profound. God doesn't silence voices he plans to discard. He silences voices he's preparing to restore. What happened next would silence her voice in the most public, humiliating way possible. But here's the twist she couldn't see yet. Silence wasn't her ending. It was her preparation for something she never expected. Before we continue, if this story is stirring something in you, if you're beginning to see yourself in Miriam watching her voice fade, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Because what happens next will shatter how you see correction and restoration, will reveal what God does with voices he humbles, and will show you the twist that proves being silenced doesn't mean being discarded. Numbers chapter 12 verse 4 records what happened immediately after Miriam and Aaron spoke. At once the Lord said to Moses, Aaron and Miriam, "Come out to the tent of meeting, all three of you." So the three of them went out. At once, not later, not after deliberation, immediately. The moment the words left their mouths, God responded. Picture the scene in vivid detail, the tent of meeting in the center of camp, the pillar of cloud descending suddenly, thick and terrifying, the smell of holiness that made your knees weak. Moses walking toward it, unsurprised, Aaron beside him, throat tightening with dread, and Miriam perhaps still defensive, perhaps already feeling the storm coming. The three of them approaching the tent, the cloud settling over the entrance like a wall. Every person in that camp of 600,000 stopping what they were doing and turning to watch. Because when God shows up in anger, everyone knows. And then the voice of God splitting the air like lightning. Numbers chapter 12, verses 6 through 8. When there is a prophet among you, I, the Lord, reveal myself to them in visions. I speak to them in dreams. But this is not true of my servant Moses. He is faithful in all my house. With him I speak face to face, clearly and not in riddles. He sees the form of the Lord. Can you hear the weight of those words? God wasn't denying that Miriam was a prophet. He was establishing hierarchy. Moses' relationship with him was different, unique, face to face. And then the question that must have hit like a physical blow. Why then were you not afraid to speak against my servant Moses? Why were you not afraid? Have you ever had someone ask you that question? Not, why did you do it? But why weren't you afraid to do it? Implying you should have known better, implying the consequences were obvious. Numbers chapter 12, verse 9, the anger of the Lord burned against them, and he departed. The cloud lifted, the presence withdrew, and everyone turned to look, and what they saw made Aaron gasp. Numbers chapter 12, verse 10. When the cloud lifted from above the tent, Miriam's skin was leprous. It became as white as snow. Aaron turned toward her and saw that she had leprosy. White as snow. Advanced leprosy. Her skin suddenly covered in decay, peeling, rotting before everyone's eyes. Can you imagine that moment? 1 second you're standing there defending yourself. The next second your skin is rotting. But here's the part that makes women throughout history gasp. Here's the injustice that has to be named, because God himself recorded it without explanation. Aaron, standing right next to her. Aaron, who spoke the same words. Aaron, who questioned the same authority. Aaron, who was mentioned in the same sentence in Numbers chapter 12, verse 1. Miriam and Aaron began to talk against Moses. Aaron looked down at his own hands. Nothing. Not a mark, not a blemish, not a single white patch. He had said the same words. He had questioned the same authority. He stood right beside her when they spoke against Moses. Why was she struck and he wasn't? The Bible doesn't tell us. It just records the fact without commentary. Both spoke, one leprous, one untouched. Can you feel the injustice of that moment? Can you feel the confusion? Can you feel the pain of bearing the consequence alone while someone equally guilty walks away free? Have you ever been punished more severely for the same mistake someone else made? Have you ever watched someone receive a warning while you received termination? Miriam stood there with skin rotting while her brother stood unmarked beside her. And that unfairness, that disparity, is part of her story. Part of our story. God doesn't hide it. He records it. And he doesn't ask us to pretend it doesn't hurt. Numbers chapter 12, verses 11 through 12 records. Aaron's response. Aaron said to Moses, "Please, my Lord, I beg you, do not hold against us the sin we have so foolishly committed. Do not let her be like a stillborn infant, coming from its mother's womb with its flesh half eaten away." Aaron, unmarked but horrified, begged for mercy, for his sister, using graphic language, like a stillborn infant, flesh half eaten away. That's what advanced leprosy looked like. Death while still breathing. And then comes the moment that reveals the heart of a true leader. Moses, the man they criticized, the man they undermined, the man they spoke against publicly. Moses opened his mouth, and you'd expect what? Silence? She made her bed, let her lie in it? No. But God had already been softening Moses' heart. God had already been preparing this moment, because God doesn't just discipline, He orchestrates restoration. 5 words came out of Moses' mouth that changed everything. Numbers chapter 12, verse 13. So Moses cried out to the Lord, "Please, God, heal her." 5 words, "Please, God, heal her." Can you imagine what Miriam felt hearing that? The shame of needing mercy from the person you wounded, the complexity of being saved by the voice you tried to silence. Moses didn't have to pray. He could have let divine justice run its course, but he interceded. For the woman who questioned his authority, for the sister who spoke against him, for the voice that tried to diminish his, he interceded, and God heard. Not maybe, not we'll see. God heard immediately. Numbers chapter 12, verse 14. The Lord replied to Moses. God could have stayed silent. God could have let the leprosy run its course, but God answered the intercessor. The moment Moses prayed, God responded. That's the first hint that Miriam's story wasn't ending in permanent exile. The God who struck her was the same God who was already planning her return. The Lord said, if her father had spit in her face, would she not have been in disgrace for 7 days? Confine her outside the camp for 7 days. After that, she can be brought back. 7 days. God would heal her. But first, 7 days outside the camp. 7 days of public shame. Her voice would be silenced, publicly, painfully, completely. But God said 4 words that would prove to be the second plot twist. After that, she can be brought back. Silence wasn't her ending. Correction wasn't rejection. 7 days wasn't forever. But Miriam, standing outside that camp, didn't know about the third plot twist yet. The detail that nobody talks about. The twist that will make you weep. Why does God correct His leaders publicly? Why does He allow humiliation for those He's called? Because healing a wounded heart that's turning bitter requires stripping away everything. Platform, influence, recognition, voice. God doesn't just want your service. He wants your heart. And sometimes the only way to access a wounded, bitter heart is to remove everything it's hiding behind. What does this mean for you? What if the season where your voice was silenced wasn't rejection, but redirection? God could have chosen someone else. He could have replaced Miriam with another prophetess, another worship leader, another voice. Israel had 600,000 people, but He chose Miriam, the flawed one, the corrected one, the humbled one. Why? Because God doesn't replace who He's called just because they stumbled. He corrects them. He restores them. He proves that His calling isn't dependent on your perfection. Just as Miriam stood outside the camp bearing the shame of her sin, Jesus stood outside Jerusalem bearing the shame of ours. Just as Miriam needed an intercessor, we need Jesus. Just as Moses prayed, "Please God, heal her," Jesus prays for us at the right hand of the Father. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 6. The Lord disciplines the one He loves, and He chastens everyone He accepts as His son. Everyone He accepts. Not everyone He rejects. Everyone He accepts. Miriam's leprosy wasn't evidence that God was done with her. It was evidence that He was still invested in who she would become. Her 7 days outside the camp weren't abandonment. They were preparation. What if your season of silence isn't rejection? What if it's God preparing to restore your voice in a healthier form? Because here's what Miriam couldn't see standing outside that camp. God wasn't just restoring her voice. He was proving to the entire nation that her voice still mattered, even corrected, even humbled. And the way He proved it is the third plot twist, the detail that changes everything. Numbers chapter 12, verse 15. 1 verse, 23 words in English. But when you understand what it means, it will break you. So Miriam was confined outside the camp for 7 days, and the people did not move on till she was brought back. Did you catch that? Read it again slower. The people did not move on till she was brought back. 600,000 people, the entire nation of Israel. They could have continued their journey. They could have packed their tents, but they didn't. But God wasn't just making Miriam wait. God was making the entire nation demonstrate something. For 7 days, the pillar of cloud stayed stationary. For 7 days, not a single tent was packed. For 7 days, the nation that complained about everything waited in complete silence for one leprous woman. Because God doesn't just restore individuals, He restores them publicly, proving to everyone watching, this voice still matters. Can you imagine standing outside that camp on day 5? Day 6, watching 600,000 people refuse to move. That's when Miriam realized something that would change how she saw herself forever. Her voice still mattered, even corrected, even humbled. God made the entire nation wait for her. Not because she was perfect, not because she hadn't sinned, but because even in discipline, she still mattered to Him. So what do we learn from Miriam? First, God doesn't silence voices He plans to discard. He silences voices He's preparing to use differently. Miriam's 7 days weren't about destroying her voice. They were about transforming it from a voice that spoke from woundedness to wisdom. Are you in your 7 days? Has your voice been silenced? What if that's not rejection? What if that's preparation? Second, the people who matter will wait for you. God didn't just heal Miriam, He made the entire nation wait for her return. He sent a message. This voice still matters to me. We don't move forward without her. Have you been afraid that your correction means you're replaceable? God restored Miriam's voice, and when He did, He proved that voices He corrects aren't voices He cancels. Finally, restoration doesn't erase the journey, but the journey doesn't erase your value. Miriam carried the memory of those 7 days for the rest of her life. But she also never forgot that 600,000 people waited, that Moses interceded, that God said, after that, she can be brought back. So the question is, will you trust Him through the 7 days? If Miriam's story has touched your heart today, I want you to do 3 things. First, leave a comment below and write, God restored my voice. Because maybe today is the day you finally stop believing your correction means your calling is over. Maybe today is the day you choose to trust that the voice God silenced, He still intends to use. Second, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. Every week we bring you forgotten biblical characters who stumbled but were restored, leaders who failed but weren't abandoned, stories that prove your past doesn't disqualify your future, stories of voices that mattered, then faded, then were restored in ways nobody expected. Third, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, someone who's standing outside the camp right now, someone whose voice has been silenced and they don't know if it will ever matter again, someone who needs to know that God makes nations wait. Someone who needs to believe that God restored my voice is a declaration they can make too, because this isn't just a story from 3,000 years ago. This is your story. This is the gospel of a God who corrects who He loves, humbles who He still intends to use, and restores voices He once silenced because He's never been finished with them. Miriam started as a 7-year-old girl with a voice that saved Moses' life. She became a prophetess whose voice led thousands. She became one of 3 leaders God Himself said He sent, and then her voice faded, and when she spoke up from a wounded place, God struck her with leprosy. The difference between her story ending in permanent silence or ending in restoration? 7 days, 7 days of waiting, 7 days of trusting, 7 days of believing that correction wasn't cancellation. That's the difference between voices that stay silent and voices that are restored. Silent says, God's done with me. Restored says, God's not finished yet. Thousands of years have passed since Miriam stood outside that camp with white leprous skin, but the message echoes unchanged across the centuries to reach you today. Your voice matters to God, even when He corrects it, even when He humbles it, even when He requires 7 days of shame before He restores it. Today, God is asking you the same question He asked Miriam standing outside that camp. Will you trust me through the correction? Will you believe I'm still invested even when you're isolated? Will you wait for restoration even when discipline feels permanent? And the answer is you. No matter how public your failure was, no matter how justified your correction was, no matter how long you've been waiting outside the camp, you can trust that God restores voices He's corrected. You can believe that the people who matter will wait for you. No matter how deeply you've been humbled, no matter how completely your voice has been silenced, no matter how long your 7 days have lasted, God made 600,000 people wait for Miriam. He made the entire nation refuse to move until she came back. He sent the clearest message possible. This voice still matters. We don't go forward without her. Because here's what Miriam discovered in those 7 days. God doesn't silence forever the voices He intends to use. He silences them long enough to heal what's broken, to humble what's proud. And when those 7 days are over, when the lesson is learned, when the healing is complete, God doesn't just restore your voice quietly. He makes the whole camp wait. He proves publicly that you still matter. May the story of Miriam remind you today that the God who corrected her voice also restored it. The God who struck her with leprosy also healed her. The God who put her outside the camp also made the nation wait for her return. God restored her voice, and He restores yours. God bless you deeply. Until the next story.